Hey there, in-game community, welcome back. Thanks for joining us as always. It's time for must-start wide receivers. So let's get to it. Chris, give me your first name.
Before people go down below and comment that I'm an idiot for recommending A.J. Brown because everybody starts A.J. Brown. No, not everybody does start A.J. Brown because he's playing the Rams. He's playing Jalen Ramsey. People are going to be scared of that matchup. They're going to think about what A.J. Brown did in the beginning of the season or what he didn't do in the beginning of the season and not what he's done lately. And they're going to wonder if they should bench A.J. Brown. Do not bench A.J. Brown. A.J. Brown is about as matchup proof as it gets. And oh, by the way, Derrick Henry, done, possibly for the season. That's only better for A.J. Brown in this passing game because now they're not going to be able to run the ball 35 or 40 times. So they're probably going to have to throw more. And like I said, A.J. Brown, it doesn't matter the matchup. We saw last week, he had 0 points late into the second quarter with 0 targets. And then he got 1 catch for 57 yards and a touchdown where he broke a tackle and took it to the house. That's what A.J. Brown can do. That's why he must be in your lineup, even in a tough matchup like the Rams.
We get a lot of questions about guys you wouldn't believe. Should I start this guy, that guy? And Brown, believe it or not, isn't in everyone's starting lineup every week. That same game, look, let's go to the other side. A guy that people were ready to drop after week 3, week 4, that is Bobby Trees. And so yes, he's back. No, he's not doing what Cooper Kupp is doing, but he's also being involved. He's fine, scored 2 touchdowns last week, had a monster game the week before. He now has 5 touchdowns in 8 games, and he is creeping up towards solid weekly wide receiver 2 value, which is probably what you should have expected from him in the first place. So if it wasn't for the fact Cooper Kupp was breaking records and winning leagues, you would probably think Robert Woods is doing just fine. Keep him in this lineup. And oh, by the way, Tennessee, that defense is still the worst against wide receivers, giving up the most fantasy points per game to wide receiver. So there is room for both Kupp and Woods, maybe even Van Jefferson, to feast this week. All right, we're gonna keep going with wide receivers. Don't forget to, at the end of this video, click that little like button. And if you haven't subscribed to the end game, there's nothing to wait for. Go ahead and do that now. All right, let's keep going with another wide receiver for week 9.
I'm saying you got to start Brandon Cooks this week against Miami. If Tyrod Taylor does start this week, I know there was talk that he might start last week and he didn't, then Brandon Cooks is even, is in a blow up spot. But even if it is Davis Mills, I think it's okay because, no offense, it's your Dolphins, right? This defense looks terrible, can't stop anybody. And the thing you worry about with Davis Mills when it comes to Brandon Cooks is that he's under pressure all game. He's running for his life and he's just checking the ball down. Well, that's not going to be the issue against Miami. They're not going to be able to get a ton of pressure on Davis Mills. And again, if it's Tyrod Taylor, if somehow he does play this week, that's even better for Brandon Cooks. So whether it's Tyrod Taylor or Davis Mills, doesn't matter to me. This matchup is just way too good to ignore. You've got to put Brandon Cooks in your lineup.
Yeah, look, he's not going to go off every single week, but for the most part, he's shown he's kind of matchup and quarterback proof. All right, and I think we can probably say the same for Hollywood Brown. Believe it or not, Marquise Brown, had that touchdown streak. It was snapped, of course, when he dropped 3 easy touchdowns against Detroit, but then he started up again. He's a solid weekly wide receiver too, and this matchup begs you to start him. Going against Minnesota, we saw what Cooper Rush did them, and of course, both Lamb and Amari Cooper had monster games. We might not remember that Patrick Peterson, who was their top cornerback, has been hurt, and now they just lost their best pass rusher, Danielle Hunter, for the season. So there's no reason not to put Hollywood Brown in your lineup. He's always a touchdown waiting to happen. All right, give me another wide receiver you like in week 9.
I really like Jerry Jeudy this week. First game last week, had 4 catches on 4 targets. So, not a great game, but that whole entire Broncos offense was terrible. This week it's Dallas. And what do we know about Dallas? We know Trayvon Diggs is great. And he's probably going to spend a lot of time covering Cortland Sutton, who is their outside big play wide receiver. That's going to leave Jerry Jeudy against the rest of this Dallas secondary, which isn't very good. Jerry Jeudy is more the closer to the line of scrimmage guy, the shorter A-dot guy. And that is good for Jerry Jeudy, especially in a PPR league where you don't need those, huge monster plays where he can rack up 7-8 catches for 70, 80 yards and give you a great PPR day, especially if he scores. So if you didn't roll him out last week, or even if you did, roll him out again this week because I think week 9 is where Jerry Jeudy really will shine.
Yeah, I was counting on more from Jeudy last week going against your football team, but it didn't happen. Another week to kind of get his legs under him. Maybe it'll happen this week. All right, now it didn't happen last week for Jalen Waddle because Devontae Parker came back. So now there's a concern. Well, is Parker now the alpha receiver there and Waddle's going to fade? Not so fast. Waddle still got 12 targets, right? He had a ton of targets, he just only caught 4 of them. It was just a bad game, right, all around for the Dolphins. Maybe because they were going against the top-ranked defense in the NFL in the Buffalo Bills. That might have something to do with it. They get the Houston Texans. Definitely not the top-ranked defense in the league. So it's going to be a much easier time. Tua has shown that in the 2 games before the Buffalo game, this last one, he's going to throw it quite a bit. Not necessarily because they need to in this game, but just because they can. And look, this is not a matchup anyone's looking forward to, but there could be a lot of fantasy fireworks in terms of points scored from the receivers on both sides. So I like Waddle, keep him in there. I'd say, you know what, keep Devontae Parker in there too, because they could have their way with the Houston secondary. All right, we're gonna keep it going with a couple more wide receivers. First, let me remind you, we do have a Patreon page if you wanna check out the info in the description below. As I mentioned, that start sit show that we do on Sunday mornings, give you all the latest news and info and help you build a winning lineup each and every week. So check that out if you get a chance. All right, Chris, your final must-start wide receiver.
I'm going back to T. Higgins. I was off T. Higgins for the last couple of weeks because of his usage, or at least the way he was being used. But I liked what I saw in week 8. He started to catch more passes down the field. And the Bengals are starting to become a throw-first team, right? For the first 5 or 6 weeks, they were a very run-heavy team. Now, maybe because Joe Burrow is fully healthy, I don't know what it is, but they're becoming more of a throw-first team. So obviously, Jamar Chase, you've got him in your lineup every week, but I think this is a great week to start T. Higgins because the Browns, they're not a terrible secondary, but they are susceptible to the big play. I've talked about it before. I think T. Higgins is a great start for your fantasy team this week.
Good to see him back, we think. I don't know, I was off him last week, but those big plays downfield definitely help. A guy who depends on that is Chase Claypool. I know he disappointed last week. You never really know what to expect with him, right? It's boom or bust for the most part. I'm going to feel that there's a boom coming on because playing Chicago, you got to realize they just still gave up over 30 points to San Francisco and Jimmy Garoppolo. They're giving up a lot of yardage and fantasy points to wide receivers. They give up 275 yards last week to San Francisco's wide receivers. So I think it's safe to say Claypool has a good chance for a big week. Yeah, there's always risk with him. I think that the matchup says that there's a good chance he does boom. So I'm going to stick with him in this week where there's 4 teams on bye and there's not a lot of boom plays that are better than him. All right, that does it for week 9's must-start wide receivers. Of course, don't forget to check out the running back version of this and all our other content. As always, we're here to help you win. Thanks for watching.